as we heard in Joey's story last episode 20, if you go back and watch that, he gave an example of when he didn't let that light shine, and then he gave that example of when he did. And the outcome when we do follow after Christ, we obey him, we allow the world to see the love of Christ.
For me, that's what it means to be a Christian, is that verse. And I honestly forgot about that verse and did not know that was here, and I like it a lot.
So we're not supposed to keep it secret and keep it safe.
This is the one
Keep
time.
it secret, keep it safe.
Yeah, I guess not.
That's a good
yeah.
scene.
That is a really good scene.
Maybe I'll have to add that in there.
Maybe clip it.
Keep it secret. Keep it secret.
We have to remember, too, that God doesn't physically reveal himself like a physical form here on Earth.
No, I saw him the other day.
Oh, really?
Yeah, you want to know what we did?
Collected agates?
Yes, we did.
What kind of shoes was he wearing?
New Balance, white New Balance.
Really?
Dad shoes.
That's exactly what I imagined. Dude.
Actually, no, he was wearing, what are those? The,
Crocs?
Crocs, but they're like the sandals.
Hey guys, and welcome back to another episode of the Campfire Council podcast. As always, thank you so much for being here with us. We appreciate all of you. Do us a favor, share this, as Joy says, with your grandma.
Yes.
Show someone, show your dog, show a friend. Get the word out. We really appreciate it. Today with us on the council, we have with us Brandon, Milo, Joey's, and myself, Luke.
Let's go.
And for today's episode, we are going to be having Brandon take it away to start it off.
Yeah. So, obviously, you guys watched the last episode because you wouldn't miss a single episode.
Well, clearly.
The episode before last episode. What was that, 19? Or was that 20?
20
That was
just
20.
dropped.
Yeah, this is 21, isn't it?
We did
insane.
20. We did 20. I mean, we
That's
actually
crazy.
have like 38 because of the couple that we didn't post. But
8.5?
yeah, we've been doing. We had
That'll call it
20.
a light of day.
20 just dropped today,
Okay.
which is pretty crazy. So 20 weeks so far,
Yeah.
or 20 episodes.
Yeah. So in episode 20, as you remember, Noah was talking about the Sermon on the Mount, and I just felt really moved by it because I will say this: as long as we have this podcast, if you're looking for something to dive into in the Bible and you don't know where to start, or you're just curious, Sermon on the Mount, Matthew 5, chapter 5 through chapter 7, those 3 chapters are just such a great place to start. It's Jesus preaching on the Sermon on the Mount to a bunch of people, and it's very powerful, the lessons that he teaches. And what I love about the Sermon on the Mount is that it helps to believe that Jesus is God, that he is the Son of God. But if you're not all about that and you just believe that Jesus was just a prophet or highly respected, the words that he has to say are still very powerful. And if you live a life following the Sermon on the Mount, you will do great things. Yeah.
So you're saying anybody can just pick up these verses and then live their life just based off of that?
Yeah, I believe that
Wow.
you can't really deny that Jesus was a real person, historical figure. Obviously, people argue that he was not the Son of God and whatever. So with these verses, that's what I just love, is that no matter who you are, where you come from, if you live a life following this, there can just be no wrong, because it's just it helps you deter from many sins. And and I'm actually going to just read them out just so that we're all on the same page. So we may break this up into a multiple part series just because the Sermon on the Mount is
Big as
decent.
a mountain.
It's decently long. I highly recommend for people that want to listen to it. If you go on the Holy Bible app, I don't know, just called the Holy Bible app, it only takes 15 minutes to listen from chapter 5 to chapter 7, so that could be your drive over to work. So highly recommend.
It's not a super long read, which is nice.
No. Yeah, so we're just going to read to chapter 5, verse 16, because after that it starts, Jesus begins to talk about fulfillment of the law. He starts talking about not so much rewriting the law, but redefining the law. So pull it up tree low. But
Pull it up too low.
all right, so chapter 5, introduction to the Sermon on the Mount. Now, When Jesus saw the crowds, he went up on a mountainside and sat down. His disciples came to him, and he began to teach. And these next verses up until 12 are the Beatitudes. He said, "Blessed are the poor in spirit, for theirs is the kingdom of heaven. Blessed are those who mourn, for they will be comforted. Blessed are the meek, for they will inherit the earth. Blessed are those who hunger and thirst for righteousness, for they will be filled. Blessed are the merciful, for they will be shown mercy. Blessed are the pure in heart, for they will see God. Blessed are the peacemakers, for they will be called children of God. Blessed are those who are persecuted because of righteousness, for theirs is the kingdom of heaven. Blessed are you when people insult you, persecute you, and falsely say all kinds of evil against you because of me. Rejoice and be glad, because great is your reward in heaven. For in the same way they persecuted the prophets who were before you." So we'll stop there, because then the next few verses up until 16 are about salt and light. But before I kind of open up the conversation, in this week, I kind of revisited what blessed are the poor in spirit and blessed are the meek. I don't know if you guys have ever like looked into what that means, but it sounds almost like negative, like meek and poor in spirit. So I had to like look it up because I was like, I don't know what this means.
That's what I originally thought too.
Yeah. But the difference between like meekness and poor in spirit is meekness is being quiet and gentle and allowing to be imposed on or like persuaded or submissive.
I think it's also humility as well.
Yeah, and it doesn't mean being easily imposed on by humans so much or human beliefs, but rather by the teachings of Jesus and of God. And so poor in spirit they both kind of go with like humility, but poor in spirit means a form of humility, understanding that we are just utterly hopeless without God, and therefore understanding the need to cry out and ask for his help. So meek is not resisting the teaching so much and just kind of like submitting to that. And poor in spirit is humbling yourself and realizing like we need God and we need the teachings of God.
Meek has such a negative sound to it, I think, in our society. When you think about the word meek, you just think of like weak, submissive, not willing to stand up for yourself. But when I did look into this as well, it was reassuring just knowing that, like you said, it's not a negative in this context. And then along with poor in spirit, it's like you said, it's just talking about that we are not enough, nothing we can do, nothing we can say, but we're willing to accept that through Christ and the grace of God and his love is something that we need. So that clarified things for me too, because I wasn't 100% sure what poor in spirit meant as well.
Yeah. And I just love the way that he sets each one of these up by saying you are blessed if you blank, and then it says like for one of them like for theirs is the kingdom of heaven, or like for they will be comforted. Like there's reward almost in following these teachings that Jesus has. And so I'll just open it up. Like, what are your guys' initial thoughts on some of these verses? Like, do you have a favorite, or do any stand out or apply to you?
I just think it's, like, I guess not confused, but I'm just interested of what it means when God says, blessed are those. Like, what does that exactly mean? Is he in then going to bless that person because of that? Or is he just saying, like, oh, like, good on them for having, like, a certain attitude about it? Or, like, how do we think, like, God and then blesses from the opposite of that? If that makes sense.
Yeah. You want to go ahead and take it?
Yeah, so you're asking, how is God blessing?
Well, yeah.
Or
like,
is he...
I don't know.
Winning, because I see what you're saying. So when it says like, "Blessed are the meek, for they will inherit the earth," or "Blessed are the merciful, for they will be shown mercy," I think too one thing is
like, is he just saying that, or is he saying that because they're going through that he will bless them?
I think it's
Is it
I
guaranteed?
think it could be like a little bit of both, though. So
Because not everything's guaranteed.
I think God blesses
know.
us in a lot of different ways, and a lot of times we don't realize it in the moment. Sometimes we can see it's like right in front of us, but
Sure.
we also have to remember too that we are not storing up treasures here on earth where moth and vermin come to steal, or thieves
steal.
and moth
Moth
thieves.
Moths do
Vermin.
steal.
Destroy.
Thieves come to steal
Yeah,
and
yeah.
moths come to destroy.
Yeah.
Wow, that was very difficult. We got past
We
that.
got it.
We know exactly what we're talking about on this podcast.
Does anyone remember the verse or that Bible?
I think
no
it's
idea.
in. Is that in 6? That might be in 6. So that might be.
Okay.
But it's on the Sermon on the Mount.
Yeah.
Yeah. So we're not storing up our, as Christians, as followers of Christ, we're not supposed to be storing up our treasures here on earth, but we're also storing up our treasures in in heaven. So I really don't know the answer to that, but I think God will bless us here on earth in ways when we do follow and obey him like this. It might not be necessarily in the ways we want him at the moment, maybe, but I do believe God will bless us when we are obedient and when we're willing to sacrifice things and follow after him. I don't know what that looks like. It's going to be different probably for everyone. And it could be, I mean, we were just talking about Job last week and how he literally had everything taken away from him. But then at the end, God blesses him like tenfold for being obedient. Well, not for being obedient, but for trusting in him and still having faith as his savior. So I don't know. I think it can look very different for how he can bless us, and I don't know if he's actually saying that they will be blessed because of that, or if he's just adding it in there. So
I think what it means by blessed is that God will grant you a certain strength or almost show favor over these the people who are like humble or those who are persecuted. I think there's almost like a righteous reward that we receive by following these commandments, I guess you can call them. And so if you have humility, if you do mourn, if you go through all of these lists, there is reward that comes from that because that's what God is asking you to do. And when you follow God's commandments, you are rewarded. And it's not a physical reward. Obviously, it's not, here's some shekels or whatever, or some
good
pocky
shekel.
bucks. You don't get like,
give me my shekels.
right. You get spiritual reward, and it also strengthens you. And that's why I like the Sermon on the Mount, because like if you follow these commandments, it kind of goes in line with wisdom. Like these are very wise attributes to have and commandments to follow.
So on like a power scale, where does the 10 Commandments and where do like this?
I don't
Which
think
one?
I don't think there's a power scale.
Well, yeah,
they're
but
all
you know what I'm
important.
saying.
Yeah, I got
But,
you. I
like-
think maybe in amount of what's known, the 10 Commandments are definitely very well known compared to
There's
these
probably a
books.
lot to that, like
I think-
intertwine.
You got to think back. I think the 10 Commandments are like the foundation, though,
Very old,
right?
yeah.
So that's
That
the
could be a separate
basis of
podcast.
our faith, right?
Mm-hmm.
You shall love your Lord your God with all your heart, your mind, and your soul. Love your neighbor as yourself. Like those are like the two most important things in our faith. So I would say everything is going to stem off of that.
What are you asking? Like, which ones are more important? Which ones are
Yeah.
more powerful? They're all the same. Like love your neighbor as yourself. Love the Lord your God with all your heart is the 10 Commandments.
Mhm.
That's Jesus is just distilling it into
Gotcha.
2 acts. He could have like distilled it into one. I remember Ravi Zacharias saying that. Like he could have said, it's just love every person as yourself, or just, I don't know, maybe just love or something like that. But I think he purposely separated them into 2. I'm not sure exactly what the reason is.
Yeah, I
but-
think it's helpful that Jesus really goes into detail about what this means, because as humans, we try to work around rules sometimes. So I feel as if, in the Bible it just said, love people. people might try to work around that and be like, well, you know, what is it like? Maybe I'm not doing this, but I'm still loving, like da da da. So I feel like maybe it just kind of helps define it a little bit more exact so that people understand, like, this is what love is, and this is the
There's-
love that's
I
expected.
think there's also an importance too of you gotta think why is the number one or the first commandment, love the Lord your God with all your heart, your mind, and your soul, and then it says love your neighbors as yourself. I think there's but there's a difference of just recognizing that God is God, and there's that love, and we need to follow after Christ, and He's above everything else. And then the second most important thing is love your neighbors, and in order to love Christ, you need to love people. But I think that's just kind of Him showing that there is a difference. You need to love people, but above anything else, above your family, above your friends, you need to love me.
Yeah, and with the Sermon on the Mount, kind of what you're saying with like loving God, but also having that like relying on Him. That's the whole thing with like poor in spirit, with people around you. That's being meek, or like with God's commandments. Like it very well defines it in the passage here. And yeah, I like I said, I really like the reward that he talks about afterwards. Like obviously we shouldn't be doing these things to like expect a reward, but it's almost like like you do these things and then you get these rewards, like for theirs is the kingdom of heaven, for they will be comforted, for they will inherit the earth, they will be filled, like yeah.
And I know you said before too that we are being blessed with things that are, like I mentioned, being stored up in heaven, which is true, but God can also bless us with things here on earth today. So you got to think God can bless us with good health. He can bless us with a partner. He can bless us with wealth if He wants to. So I think it's important too to realize that God can and will at times bless us with things on earth here. But like you're saying, Brandon, we shouldn't be expecting it when we do these things. We should have going after with a heart of humility and the sole purpose of obedience and love towards Christ. And it's like a bonus if you were to be blessed with something. It's just God, blessing us. So take those wins when you can.
Yeah, and it's very rewarding too when you feel the Holy Spirit moving in your heart, by the way that we talk to people, by the way that we carry ourselves. Like there is a reward to that as well, because it's a very selfless reward. It's saying like, I feel very good and I feel my spirit is filled because I just demonstrated God's love and I just expressed that to somebody, or like showed that. So it's a very selfless kind of reward.
Yeah. Back to your question of if we have a favorite beatitude.
Yeah.
I think mine is, so verse 6, it says, blessed are those who hunger and thirst for righteousness. That one stands out to me just because it reminds me of myself of just like being hungry a lot of the time. But I like it how it, like just hungering and wanting and thirsty for more righteousness and like more knowledge. I think that's huge, of just wanting to, we've talked about it in a book in Bible study, being in a borderland of, you're being comfortable in your relationship with Christ, and there's that line, there's that border that you don't want to necessarily cross to get uncomfortable to, further your faith with Christ. But I think when you hunger and you thirst for righteousness and you thirst for Christ, there's going to be a lot of growth and a lot of good things are going to come from that. So that's probably my favorite beatitude, of just wanting to stay hungry and thirsty for growing closer to Christ.
I have something to say about meekness, but if you want to continue on favorite beatitude.
Yeah, we could do that next. I just wanted to add to this.
Yeah.
Throughout the Bible, like in Proverbs 2, it always says that God grants wisdom to those who seek. There are verses like, knock and the door shall be open, seek thou shalt find, whatever, all that. That's so powerful, because it shows that like God is not just like hoarding this wisdom or whatever. He wants to grant you that, and he wants you to seek that. And it's not always easy. Like the Bible is a very, very dense, long book, and there's so much to it, and it's very overwhelming sometimes. I've been very overwhelmed when I like try opening up my Bible. I'm like, okay, I need to study something, but then like one verse leads to another, and da 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 da. But like God is asking you to like seek that, and He blesses those who want that, and with time, like He will grant that to people. What do you want to say about meekness?
If you guys, sorry, I was drinking something. I forgot I was muted. All right, do you guys want to keep on talking about the Beatitudes? I just wanted to
We can
make
go
a
back to
quick
that.
note
Yeah,
on meekness.
Yeah, go
So,
ahead.
do you guys know who Friedrich Nietzsche was?
Sure.
I do not.
Philosopher.
He
Please
was a
educate us on it.
philosopher
Boom.
from the late 1800s.
20 points, Joey.
Definitely an atheist. I don't know a ton about his philosophy, but for one, he did not believe in a set of absolute moral values. A lot of his philosophy is like trying to come to terms with the world if God doesn't exist. So he didn't believe in God. And so it seems like I think a lot of the problems he's trying to solve is how do humans now make the next step? If like he'll talk about the death of God, what's the next step for humanity if we don't have a God anymore and we have no basis for our morality? That's like kind of a lot of what his philosophy had to say and things that he was exploring. He also went insane. So that's kind of interesting.
Dang.
But
He's saying he was proposing. Well, I'll let you keep going.
no, yeah, go ahead.
Well,
I don't want to make this like a Nietzsche like podcast. I just
Yeah,
want
yeah.
to
Oh,
like
Nietzsche?
I wanted to just preface it with like
okay.
what he kind of believed. But yeah, go ahead.
Well, just that stood out to me of like the death of God. Like what?
Yes.
Like that's just something he proposed, or like what would
Well,
happen?
at that
God
point
died.
in like in German and European like intelligentsia, I think that there was a lot of questioning of theism that had already gone on past like the Renaissance and Enlightenment. He's kind of like at the tail end of modernity, you would call it, going on into postmodernity, the postmodernism. So it's not like he proposed the death of God. It's something that he observed in the intellectual European society at the time, that people were no longer believing in God.
Okay.
And so
That makes
he
more
was
sense.
wondering like what are the consequences of this? And
Yeah.
he actually predicted that the 20th century, I don't think he made it to the 20th century. He died in the 19th century. But he predicted that the 20th century would be the bloodiest century in human history.
Oh wow, he predicted that.
And he was 100% right.
Oof.
The more people were killed in the 20th century in war and famine than in all previous centuries combined, if I'm not mistaken.
Really?
Yes.
Wow.
So he was 100% right about that. But okay, so what about meekness? So now I'm just going to read this from Ligonier.org. They're like a Christian website, but it says Nietzsche was especially critical of Christianity because he believed that it inhibits the emergence of the Übermensch, the
Übermensch.
What is the
Superman.
Übermensch?
Uber.
Superman.
Übermensch.
The Übermensch. You'll kind of like if you ever read Nietzsche, you'll kind of see there's a little similarities between like what Germany became in some point in the middle of the 20th century. There's a lot of debate about that, if Nietzsche actually influenced the Nazis or not, but some people believe that. Okay, so anyway, inhibits the emergence of the Übermensch, prevents the full evolution of humanity. He saw Christ's emphasis on meekness as crippling to the human heart and mind.
Oh, brother.
Yet, if we are not careful, we can adopt a similar understanding. So this is a Christian website, so they obviously have a view on that. Let me just read, if I can find it, read what...
Crippling.
So I believe this is Nietzsche actually speaking here. The Christian faith is from the beginning a sacrifice of all freedom, all pride, all self-confidence of the spirit, at the same time enslavement and self-mockery, self-mutilation. Modern men, with their obtuseness to all Christian nomenclature, no longer sense the gruesome superlative which lay for an antique taste in the paradoxical formula God on the cross. Never and nowhere has there hitherto been a comparable boldness in inversion, anything so fearsome, questioning, and questionable as this formula. It promised a revaluation of all antique values. So I could go
I'm gonna
on
be
and
honest,
on, but
just because I'm not very sharp.
yeah,
Is he putting down?
yeah.
Okay. That's
Yeah.
what it sounded like.
It's.
Then
I think
ended there, it
I
sounded
don't
like-
have this whole thing read, but basically I believe what he's saying is that humans used to not value meekness. They valued strength and
Yep.
pride
Yep.
and
That's what I wanna get
like that
into.
confidence in spirit to go out and conquer the world. And when Christianity came along, it was an inversion of everything that humans had valued before. And so he thinks of Christianity as like a perversion of the human spirit.
Interesting.
So I think it's very interesting. Like when we're reading the Bible and we're thinking about these ideas, what do the people that disagree read this as? You know, like why was what Jesus was saying? Why was it revolutionary? Why was it valuable and different? And I think you have to like go to people that disagreed. And I think Nietzsche's very right that like before Jesus and the Sermon on the Mount, most of human history didn't play out as valuing meekness. So why should we value meekness? Why should we value poorness of spirit? Like what's good about that?
When I think about meekness, it reminds me of when Jesus rolled up to Jerusalem.
How did he roll up?
He rolled up on a donkey.
Yeah, that's cool.
And you think like right off the bat, everyone that knew he was coming to save them, they thought that he was coming to be their military leader to save them from the Roman oppression.
Yeah.
So they were expecting a strong king that was going to help them rise up and defeat the Romans so they could be free. But that's not what happened, because we see Jesus shows up on a donkey. And during that time period, horses represented, especially like a king. He's going to be rolling up on a horse. Probably the nicest of horses that they have. It represents your status, your power, your wealth. And Jesus decides, no, I'm going to show up on a donkey, which is a lower level animal that someone would have used to travel. And he right off the bat is showing that he's humbling himself in a way. Like he's not trying to... Where am I going with this? So he's not trying to show up as this powerful, look at me, king. I'm here to save you from...
me. Yeah, like
Yeah,
give
I
you
mean, we
praise and
should
glory.
be
What
worshiping
people
him,
would
but-
think as the Ubermensch.
Exactly. And
Yeah.
it just caught people probably off guard, like the Messiah, the Son of God, is not showing up on a horse or with a parade or with chariots or with an
He's
army.
not looking down on people. He's looking at
Yeah,
them.
and he's showing up on, on a donkey. And when I think about meek, that's what I think about. And I think Jesus sets the perfect example of, if he's literally the Son of God, we should follow in his footsteps of meekness, of humility, of,
Yeah.
you know.
Yeah, and I think about why do we mistreat people? Why do we use people? Is because we can be prideful and we can put ourselves first. And so I think when the importance of meek and poor in spirit is addressed, when we live a life for someone other than ourselves, it helps us treat others in a certain way, because when we submit to God and we say, Lord, like, you're in control, I submit to you, I pray that you fill my spirit. When you look at others, you may not be as prone to mistreating them. Not to say that you're not going to, but like, and I'm saying us, everyone.
No, just you.
Not just me. You will
Brandon
you will
mistreats us.
see them as the image of God that he created. You will see this beautiful person that God has set before you, and I think that kind of helps us treat them with a different mindset rather than like, I'm going to do what I want to do and like they can stand with me or they can stand against me, but instead being like, let's work together in a sense, or like working a little bit more towards treating people with respect and with humility. And I think this world would be a much better place if we put others before ourselves more often. And so I think meek and poor in spirit really helps to guide us to that point.
Mm-hmm.
So I think it's very important to live a life other than ourselves, because like if we are just living a life for ourselves and there's no goal and there's no nothing else, like we should probably do what's best for us and only us to further ourselves.
Milo, back to your question, do you have, when you ask like what's so revolutionary about Jesus giving the Sermon on the Mount, do you have an idea for that, of why you think maybe it is revolutionary? Or
Well, it's just like Nietzsche was wrong. Like he thought we could fix humanity. Like he saw there was something wrong with humanity. He looks back on all the war and suffering, and he thought we could fix humanity by like just taking the next step of evolution. And the Bible basically says the opposite. There's no next step of evolution.
Yeah.
We're not going to become the Ubermensch. We're not going to become Supermen. We are failures as humans. We're sinful.
we kind of suck.
I think it's just so much more realistic. Like, when if you just look at human history, it makes so much more sense when you realize that we are a fallen species, that we're not as we were meant to be. And Jesus comes in and says, sorry, you can't save yourself, but I'm here to save you. And Jesus is that Superman, but he doesn't, like Joyce is saying, like you were saying, sorry, he doesn't ride in as a king in all his glory. He rides in on a donkey. And he becomes the best possible version of a human, and dies a criminal's death as an innocent man. And it's just it's so deep that I don't fully understand it. Like I don't fully understand Jesus's sacrifice and like what that means, but there's something there. There's something about that humility and that sacrifice that is our salvation. So I don't know, did I answer your question?
Yeah, I think you did. Yeah.
Okay.
I think too, with the whole thing of like an evolved, like he's saying we just have to wait until we're just like an evolved version of us or something.
I don't know Nietzsche that well. I don't know what his plan was exactly. I think he was basically saying that's just going to happen.
Oh. Okay.
That'll be the next step for humanity, but he was
I feel
wrong.
like that almost takes away like accountability almost, because you're like, oh well, like later on we'll evolve into like something. But I think it kind of attacks like Christianity, like not attacks in a bad way, but attacks it in a good way of like, we need to fix ourselves now. Like we can't just wait, we shouldn't just like expect things to be better. Like we should work to better ourselves now.
No, the Christianity says we can't fix ourselves.
Well, no, but like, right. Like we need God, but we should work towards bettering ourselves right now instead of.
I think what Jesus is saying is that you can't. I maybe this is kind of going off topic, but I think Jesus is saying we can't fix ourselves.
No, I'm not saying fix ourselves, because we are human. We're broken. We can't fix ourselves. But like working to live a holier, more godly life, I think we can work towards it. We're never going to reach it, but like working towards it.
Yeah, sanctification.
Yes, exactly. Like that's something that we should do. You don't think that? I think we're just like
I think we're not disconnected. I've been thinking about this, and been listening to Tim Keller also, and I think just there's more to it. It's not like that verse. I forgot where it was. Maybe Corinthians, where Paul is
where's
basically,
no one we need him.
Yeah,
Yeah,
right. Where Paul is basically saying, I don't do what I want to do, but it's not me that does it. It's the sin in me. I can find it later, but that's such an interesting set of verses there. Just because it seems like almost like Paul is saying the law and trying to follow the law actually makes the problem with following the law worse. And it's only through the transformation that we experience through Jesus that we can even try to follow the law.
I might be getting a little confused.
Yeah, I know what you're saying, Brent.
Okay,
I know what
okay.
you guys are both saying, and you
Yeah.
guys are on pretty much the same page. But what you were saying, Milo, I was actually listening to the George Janko, Cliff Connectley, and Stuart Connectley podcast over again today when I had some just downtime at work, and that's a great. If you guys looking for a good episode on some deeper, harder questions on Christianity, go watch George Janko's episode with Cliff and Stuart Connectley. They dive into some good conversation about just deeper questions that Christians don't always like to ask. But he brings up, George brings up a verse that scared him a lot earlier in his faith about it was Judgment Day, and the Pharisees, I believe, or I forget what people, but they come up to Christ, and he says, "Be away from me, for I never knew you," somewhere along those lines. And they said, "But Lord, haven't we
that's in the Sermon on the
prophesied?"
Mount.
Oh, it is, yeah.
Mm-hmm.
Haven't I prophesied in your name? Haven't we healed in your name?
Yeah.
And he says, like you said, I never knew you, and that's because they did these things, which were probably great things when you look at it, but they didn't do it with the right intentions, and they didn't have that relationship with Christ.
Yeah.
So like that shows right there that you could be, in the world's eyes, the best person ever with being humble, being generous, being loving, all these things of being perfect per se. But when it comes to relationship with Christ, it's like, did you actually know God though?
Yeah.
And that's what matters. I think it's have a relationship with Christ. You need to get to know him through the word, through prayer, through community, through everything. And when you have that, you learn how to die to yourself and pick up your cross daily. And that's going to be different for everyone. We all have our struggles. We all have our sins, but it's then learning how to, what do I need to work on to grow closer with Christ?
Yeah. Yeah. For sure.
I think it's like it's the pursuit of trying to follow the law is impossible.
Yeah. That's the whole reason why, like, I can't imagine being the Jews back in the day of, like, you had to literally follow every single law perfectly.
Right.
And that, yeah. And
Yeah.
it's obviously it's not possible. Like, that's
And
the whole
Paul's
reason
even
why.
like, I was the best. I was the most righteous among you, or something like that. But I'm totally paraphrasing because I don't know. I haven't read Paul enough. But basically, I was like the best among you, and yet I was full of sin.
Yeah. And they would stone you back then.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's tough. That's tough.
Like, and not
very
just
tough.
you, your entire family. Like, if there were certain sins that people would commit that in today's society is just brushed off, like adultery.
Yeah, your whole family would be stoned for that.
Yeah, I mean, obviously, like murder, it's different, but
Yeah,
I'm trying to think
stealing.
of, stealing. I think at certain times they cut off your hand. I don't know if that's a different society,
yeah,
but
that might be a different society. But yeah, it's extreme, dude. It's
like,
crazy.
yeah, just it's crazy how in today's society, like, we look at it, even as Christians, it doesn't seem as bad, but in those times it was taken very seriously. Obviously, for getting stoned, which would suck, but
It's pretty terrible.
yeah.
Yeah.
Joyce, you have a favorite
Yeah, Josephus.
beatitude?
I do like the first one. Blessed are the poor in spirit. I think that was put to be the first one for a good reason. I think that's just that humility aspect. Shout out Noah.
Aspect.
For their kingdom, for theirs is the kingdom of heaven. I just think that's that's just super important to be humble throughout whatever you're doing, whether it's I had a thought and then it left me, so there's
Maybe
that.
it'll come back.
Maybe it'll come back.
It's coming back.
It's not going back.
Okay, no.
Do you want to get into the next section of the?
Yeah, I just kind of wanted to talk about the persecuted, because I think all the other ones are a little bit more straightforward or like easier to understand. Like, blessed are the merciful, for they'll be shown mercy. That kind of goes later on into the Sermon on the Mount. It's going to say like, basically you need to forgive others, and when you forgive others, God will forgive you. But if you don't forgive others, God will not forgive you. So kind of these things, but probably my favorite, or I don't really know if I have a favorite, but like the one that stands out to me, I think the most is verse 9 and 10. Sorry, 10 and 11. Blessed are those who are persecuted because of righteousness, for theirs is the kingdom of heaven. Blessed are you when people insult you, persecute you, and falsely say all kinds of evil against you because of me. I think those are so powerful because it's hard to be bold in our faith sometimes, because there are people that oppose us, and every one of us here has probably had an uncomfortable experience where like someone makes a comment about, you know, something that's like maybe anti-Christian, or they just don't believe it or they don't like it. There have been times when people actually just feel uncomfortable being like next to me, knowing that I'm a Christian, which is really unfortunate.
I'm
'cause it's
actually
like,
always uncomfortable being next to you.
oh, well, that makes sense. That makes sense.
That's why there's a space right here.
Yeah, yeah. It's like
You have
Milo's,
the Pokemon in between you to protect
Yeah,
you.
we have some at least 6 feet.
It's like Milo's super villain, like Riz Obliterator or something
Yeah.
like that, Annihilator or something.
Room for Jesus.
Yeah.
Did your parents ever say that?
No, but I've heard that before. Leave room
Oh,
for Jesus.
yeah.
I think that's such a big one, because it's so difficult to like be proud of our faith sometimes in what we practice or in Jesus, because people around us, they just don't believe it. And I've heard like people who are close to me like insult Christ, and so I feel like almost in my shell of like, oh, I don't want to like say anything because then they're gonna say something back.
Yeah.
But like these two verses are so powerful to me, because it's like, say you confront somebody about that and you
Confront
stand
me.
up, and I stand up against you. You say something that's like,
Hey, I think
Atheist
you're.
Milo comes out.
Yeah.
Atheist Milo. Shout out to like that. That was like one of the first few episodes.
Hey, dude,
right?
you believe in the Bible? You're kind of weird.
I am weird, but if I stand up, I'm like, I don't know. I'm not really good at improv here, as 8.5 showed. But like, say I do stand up to you, and you know I'm persecuted, or then you go on and you insult me. Like Jesus is saying right here, like, good, you know, you stood up for what you believed in, and it's because of me that you were persecuted, but you stood up for a good cause, and you're blessed for it. And I think that's just like so. I don't know. That's just so enlightening to hear that, like, God sees that. God sees that you tried, and maybe you succeed, maybe you fail in, like, what you're trying to say. The words don't come to you. Palms are sweaty, knees weak, arms are heavy, you know, some stuff like
Mom
that.
spaghetti.
There's already mom spaghetti on your sweaty? Sweaty?
You're
Sweater?
sweaty.
Sweaty.
But,
That would have ruined the song if he said it like that.
yeah, sweaty.
would've.
My mom referenced Eminem the other day,
Really?
and I thought it was the funniest thing ever.
She
She
probably
said,
didn't
"Will
know
the
she
will
did.
the real
Slim Shady.
She said like, "Will the real Anns please stand up?" or something like
Oh,
that. I
really?
thought it was the funniest thing ever.
That is
So,
funny.
Mom, Anna, when you watch that, I thought that was pretty
Shout out.
funny. So
Shout out.
I had no idea she knew who Eminem was,
Yeah.
or that she knew the song.
I doubt
Yeah.
she does.
But
I don't know. I think
Oh,
I think people
Oh,
just say that so often that she just knew the context of it. She probably doesn't know who Eminem is. Let's call her.
Anna. Sorry, I don't want to.
No, you're good. You're good.
I didn't want to sidetrack you, but I wanted to, so I did.
No, I get it. Shout out to this dark Charmeleon here too. That's sick.
Because I know everyone can see it. Look at
Yeah,
that.
yeah. Hopefully by the time this episode is out, that rip will be out as well. But verse 12 then goes into say, rejoice and be glad. So we're not supposed to be ashamed. We're not supposed to be putting ourselves down if, like, you know, we're persecuted or people say all sorts of evil against us. We're supposed to rejoice and be glad. And it's promised that we have a great reward in heaven. and the people before us, the prophets before us, were also persecuted. So I just love that.
Yeah,
I think
that's
that I feel that kind of boosts my confidence a little bit, because it's like you really don't have anything to lose when you confront somebody about that, or if you bring that up, because if you talk to them and it's a really productive conversation, like, that's great. But if they, say all sorts of evil against you, like, you're blessed.
yeah. And thanks for bringing that up too. I think those are wonderful verses because
Wonderful.
if this is an encouragement to anyone that's listening or watching right now that might be struggling, if you do follow Christ, and whether it's at your workplace, at home, at school, wherever you're at, and you do have people that I've experienced, even at work, I've had friends, I've had family just like kind of poke, make fun, ask questions. And like, to be honest, like, it sucks. Like, it's not a fun thing. Like, none of us want to have what you believe in or care about made fun of, or someone, just be disrespectful or say evil things against you. But just remember those verses that Brandon read in the Sermon on the Mount in Matthew, that when we're Christians, it's not promised an easier life. Like, it's going to be difficult. We will be persecuted. We will be made fun of. We may lose friends, family, because of what we believe in and we follow Christ. And it does suck. But like Brandon was saying, the reward is worth it. Eternity with Christ is worth it. So just encouragement to anyone out there that's struggling with that. Keep your head up. Keep following after Christ. It's worth it, and you're not alone. And just read those verses for encouragement and to help you get through that. So don't be afraid to be bold and stand up for yourself in a Christ-like way.
Kind way,
Compassionate with love.
Mm-hmm.
And, let the world know, who Christ is. Share your faith.
Yeah. Yeah, and just remember that you're not living on this earth for those people. Even if they're family members and they're very close to you, like, you're not here for them, and you're not living for them. Yes, you should care for them, you should love them, you should respect them, but you're not here. Your mission is not to fulfill what they say. It's to fulfill what God says and make him proud. But we can move on to salt and light here. Should we go? What is that? Pop Smoke? Okay, so that's from Pop Smoke. What was the song called? I don't know, but Joey and we couldn't find what was. But Get Back, that's what it's called?
Yeah.
Should we go? I don't know.
That sounds like an awesome song.
Doesn't it? I'm definitely saying the lyrics right. All right, salt and light. Verse 13. You are the salt of the earth, but if the salt loses its saltiness, how can it be made salty again? It is no longer good for anything except to be thrown out and trampled underfoot. You are the light of the world. A town built on a hill cannot be hidden. Neither do people light a lamp and put it under a bowl. Pause. Okay. Instead, they put it on its stand, and it gives light to everyone in the house. In the same way, let your light shine before others, that they may see your good deeds and glorify your Father in heaven. So let's start with isalt and what that means. And I kind of looked this up because I understand the light, what that means, like shining your light on others. I didn't fully understand what salt was, but salt is a substance that's used to like bring out certain flavors in food. And so in a similar sense, what saltiness or what salt means, like in this context, is we are to work to bring out that flavor, I guess, or like godliness in ourselves and in others. And so we kind of have like this kind of like strength to us to bring that out.
Wasn't it also used to preserve food too?
Yes. And it was
I
also
know,
used to preserve.
obviously, it's probably hard to think, but before we had refrigerators,
Mm-hmm.
they used, I believe, just a bunch of salt to preserve, like especially like meat.
Yeah.
So to preserve, I also think it then, when it's used in that verse, is yes, to bring out the flavors, to bring out our faith and like that, but it's also meant for us to preserve our faith, to preserve the word, and to pass it on and to keep it. If that sounds correct,
exactly.
I believe.
Yeah, we're supposed to pass on teachings
Yeah.
and spread the love and the word of God.
Yeah, like keep it pure,
yes.
keep it correct and according to the teachings of Christ,
Exactly.
and not to stray away from that.
Yeah, because if you're not going to be that salt and you're not going to bring that out, then it says it's good for nothing and it'll be trampled underfoot. And that's one of like the top sins that is talked about. Not the top sin, but it's one of the top sins of being like a false prophet or like falsely spreading the gospel. That is like such a terrible, terrible sin. I think it's one of the 7 detestable sins.
And salt is good for a nasty, nasty gym pump. So
Oh, sure.
there's also that.
We have some salt right
Nice.
some smelling salts
Yeah.
right here.
I really like verse 14. I don't think we should skip over that.
Tell us why you like it, Joyce.
Oh, yeah. Going
I
into
like
the
it a
light.
lot because, okay, so verse 14, Matthew 5, verse
Before we
14.
go into that, does anyone else have anything to say about salt? No.
Ah.
All right, let's go. All right.
It's it's in the salt category, but it's
Right.
part of the light. So it's you are the light of the world. There's like a second part to that, but I just really like that. Like, it doesn't say like if you do this or that. It's like no, we're given that when we choose this life, that we are the light of the world, and that God gives us the strength to be that light, and gives us the opportunity to show our light. And I like how it says in the next part, a city set on a hill cannot be hidden. So like if you have your light on top of this giant hill in the city, like it's not going to be hidden. Like people are going to see that, and people are going to ask like why you're that way. Hopefully, why you're that way. Yeah, I just think that's super important. That it's a great reminder to just, when we are given opportunities, to just use that light, and that God gave it to us. It's like in our DNA essentially, is that we were given this, and that we need to use it and put it at the highest point in the city so that other people can see it. Not when we want to, not when it feels right, but not like doing it all the time. Obviously we're gonna fall short because we're human and we suck, as you said. But
we do suck at times. But
we
we also
we just
don't
gotta
at
do our
times.
best. And if this video gets 50 likes, I'll get that tattooed on my chest.
50, that's it?
Yeah.
You're going to regret that in like a couple of years. You got to put like a time frame on that.
No,
50.
there's
That
zero.
that
zero
reminds me
time frame.
of This Little Light of Mine. If you guys
Yeah.
know that
oh
song.
yeah, sing it.
This little light of mine,
No, you have to.
I'm
sing
gonna let it
You're not
shine.
singing. Brandon's singing.
and then it goes.
And then it just repeats,
yeah.
right?
yeah.
Let it
But-
shine, let it shine.
Even that
let
song
it
is super.
shine.
It's very true though. Like when, as followers of Christ, as Christians, like Joyce is saying, we have that light. Like when we make that choice to follow after Christ and to put our belief in Him as our Lord and Savior, we have that light within us, and I think it's a responsibility, and it's also a blessing for us to shine that light, because we're going to have opportunities, as we heard in Joey's story last episode 20, if you go back and watch that. He gave an example of when he didn't let that light shine, and then he gave that example of when he did. And the outcome of from when we do follow after Christ, we obey Him, we allow the world to see the love of Christ. So
To me, that's what it means to be a Christian, is that verse. And I honestly forgot about that verse and did not know that was here, and I like it a lot.
it's very good.
Yeah. Go ahead.
So we're not supposed to keep it secret and keep it safe.
This is the one
Keep
time.
it secret.
One
Keep
time.
it safe.
Yeah, I guess not.
Nice.
That's a good
Yeah.
scene.
That is a really good scene.
Maybe I'll have to add that in there.
Maybe clip it.
Keep it secret. Keep it secret. Is it secret? Is it safe?
We have to remember too that God doesn't physically reveal Himself in like a physical form here on Earth.
No, I saw him the other day. We were hanging
Oh,
out.
really?
Yeah. You want to know what we did?
Collected agates? Or
Yes, we did.
what kind of shoes was he wearing?
New Balance, white New Balance.
Really?
Dad shoes.
That's exactly what I imagined, dude.
Actually, no, he was wearing what are those? The
Crocs?
Crocs, but they're like the sandals.
Mm-hmm.
Birkenstocks. There we go.
I love.
Oh,
sorry, this
yeah,
is
yeah, yeah.
completely. I love Seen dads with the jean
Yes.
shorts,
Yes.
the hiked up white socks, the New Balances, and the tucked in
It's
the
an
tucked in
elite look,
polos.
dude.
I love it.
Yeah.
They're happy.
It just
you
caught
see them
on.
outside in the summer.
It's actually kind of trendy.
Yeah.
It's skater.
I mean, maybe not the jean shorts, but like
No,
those
the jean
shoes.
shorts are for sure skater, dude.
Oh, that's not. Yeah.
They're trendy.
But like God, he doesn't walk around on this earth like a physical person. So it's our job to be that, or to at least reflect that. And yeah, I'm gonna just keep saying it over. Like we're gonna fail. We're gonna fall short. But
Fall on your face.
very hard. But we need to be examples of what God's love is and demonstrate that to others, because who else is going to show these people out here that maybe don't know about certain things in the Bible or know much about Christ, except for the people around them. Like we should not be hoarding that for ourselves, that knowledge that we have and that love of God. Like we need to be showing that to others as much as we can.
It's also important too not to be boastful in a prideful way.
Absolutely.
I know I'm not gonna remember the book of the Bible it's in, but it talks about when like the Pharisees are out in the streets praying.
That's
for the
also Sermon on the
attention.
Mount, dude.
That's huge.
That's what I'm saying. These 3 chapters
Yeah.
are just fire.
So it's in Matthew then, but there's also a time and place for us when Jesus tells us to, go and pray by yourself.
Yep.
Have that one-on-one relationship with Christ. We shouldn't be boasting in that kind of way of like, look at me, look at how holy I am, look at these things that I'm doing. It's not, the attention should not be on us. Yes, we have to take action to do these things, to follow after Christ, but the glory and the praise should be going to Jesus Christ, our Lord and Savior. So just one thing to keep in mind as well, but
Yeah.
And you actually can't be righteous if you have that attitude.
correct. I heard, never mind, that was a completely different thing. Scratch that, but yes, I agree.
Yeah. All right. That was kind of all I had as far as like questions or
todo.
anything. Is there anything else that anyone has to say about salt and light and any of that?
Be salt,
Be salt.
be light, be salty light.
or be water.
Be water.
Oh, the video you sent?
Yeah.
Bruce Lee
Water
is
can
just
be
so,
formed into anything.
I love
That's so true, yeah.
the quotes that Bruce Lee has.
Yeah, that was, I think I'd be down, I don't know what episode it'll be, but we could definitely do like a part 2, part 3 maybe. Because how much more of Sermon on the Mount is there?
There is a lot, dude. Especially like we're only in verse 17. There are 48 verses in just chapter 5.
Yeah. This
so
will be,
there's
this
so
will probably be a
much, but-
part 1 of a couple more parts.
Yeah.
Part 2 or 3
maybe
down
4
the
or
road.
5, I don't know. Cuz yeah,
27.
I think the Sermon on the Mount is so important, and yeah, it's like you said earlier, like it's revolutionary and it's revolutionary teachings, and so it should be studied with intentionality, or just like with intention, and look into it in depth. Don't just breeze over it, because there's so many, like, dude, like how many times in this podcast did you say like, what is that one verse that's from?
I know,
It's, like,
I
from
need
the
to
Sermon on
get-
the Mount, you know.
I need to get better at,
No, you're good. I'm just saying, like, so much of what
Memorize.
you were saying is
Yeah.
like from the Sermon on the Mount.
because I'll have it where the verse sparks in my head where I
Yeah.
know the like what the verse is talking about, but I'm so bad at like remembering what chapter
No, you're good.
or like what book in the Bible. So I need to hold myself accountable
Yeah.
to being better at memorizing verses. But that's why I was joke with having like Noah, because he's so good at that. But
yeah,
One thing I'll say is that we just take these values for granted in our society. I do think that the values of Jesus are embedded in our society, in Western society. You ask the average person, should you be kind to others? Should you love your neighbor as yourself? I think most people will say yes. I thought there was a really interesting interaction with Joe Rogan and this philosopher guy that he had on named Jack Symes, who is an atheist, I believe. But Jack was trying to make the point to Joe that as atheists, they need to really consider, like really analyze their worldview and what life means. if the Judeo-Christian religion is false because they assume those values. Like and Joe was kind of like, you know, he would bring up reasons why you should like live a good life or whatever. And Jack would kind of mention like those come from Christianity. Like that's a part of the Christian worldview, you know. So what does life mean if there's like a multiverse? There's infinite universes out there. There could be an infinite number of universes where there's just like unending suffering. So what does life mean in that context now? So I thought that was very interesting. I don't think Joe has taken it to heart yet that he assumes these values and that they don't have any basis in reality if God doesn't exist and if Christianity isn't true. So when I read something like the Sermon on the Mount, that's kind of what I'm thinking. It's just like these are amazing teachings, and unfortunately we take them for granted, but we need to like remind people that where they come from.
Yeah. And being the light.
Yeah.
Right.
That would have been so cool though to actually be someone in the crowd listening to Jesus give the Sermon on the Mount. I mean, yes, we are very blessed having the Bible, which is awesome too, but like I can't imagine like the kind of teacher that he would be. Just like hearing him speak would be really cool.
What if it was like normal though? Like that's something I think about a lot is like, what if I was there and it just felt like another Tuesday? Like, oh, this guy's a really good preacher.
But there had to be something though.
Right at the end of verse 7. So this is the end of the Sermon on the Mount, the very last 2 verses. It says, when Jesus had finished saying these things, the crowds were amazed at his teaching because he taught as one who had authority and not as their teachers of the law.
Yeah.
So I think it was a little bit different,
Yeah.
At least in this time. Like, yeah, there was obviously something
Yeah, for sure.
in the air that they were like, whoa, like
he
this
wasn't
is
like
powerful.
glowing though.
Right,
and
no, he wasn't like
so
floating and like...
That's one of the kind of freaky things to me about it though. Is like just thinking back, like would I be one of the people that believed? Or would I just see him as like, you know, a smart, normal dude?
Oh, yeah. Yeah. Well, I'm excited to do some more of these parts. Like, there's so many goodies. Please, I'm gonna reread the Sermon on the Mount again this week. But there's just so many good things, and a lot of things that I think people have heard from the Bible come from these 3 chapters. So there's just a lot of goodies. So highly recommend.
Yeah, take some time to reread it, even if it's just the section we went through, Matthew chapter 5, 1 through 16. Like Brian said, it's a great place to start. The entire Sermon on the Mount is excellent, but that's not a bad place to start as well. Also, too, are you pretty wrapped up with what you had?
Yeah, you want to talk about the spiritual warfare?
Yeah, so we had last episode, we had someone ask a question about spiritual warfare. We are going to actually, instead of just answering the question, we're actually going to just do a whole episode on it. It might be in a couple episodes, but we'll for sure get to it just because we thought it'd be such a dense and good topic to go over. So thank you for that question. We really appreciate it. Also, if you guys have any questions, even if we forget to put up like a Q&A, message any of us. If you see us in person, ask us. It literally can be anything faith related, anything about, you know, us being nerdy, Pokemon, Star Wars, Lord of the Rings. If you want to get to know us better, just throw some questions, message us, or throw it in the chat, and we'd love to take some time to answer it, get some more interaction with the viewers. That'd be pretty cool. But, Joyce, you have a couple questions?
I have one for my brother asking, who do you think you are?
Who
do you think you are? I am.
Do you guys remember that
That's
scene
how
in
I
The
answer it.
Office when Michael is saying goodbye to Toby and he has to do like the final interview or whatever, or like and he has all these questions and Holly's there and he doesn't want to come across as mean because he really likes Holly and he gives him like the present
Rock.
with the rock, but he's like, they're supposed to go over questions that Michael Scott prepared and he's like, who do you think you are? What gives you the right? Like he goes through these questions and he's actually trying to like make them seem real because he doesn't want to.
Doesn't he do like
Turn
one
away.
of these? Like he's trying to like...
Yeah, he's looking at Toby and he's like, I'll kill you.
Oh, man. Good show.
Good show. Check that out.
So I am who I am. That's my answer.
That's huge.
Are you who you say I am, or are you who God says you are?
Huh?
I am who you say I am. That's where I was trying to get at. That was a
Oh,
really bad joke.
okay.
I'm gonna move on.
All right, then I have another question for all of us. How do I trust God in the valley? Meaning, when you're at your lows.
Just do it.
Yeah.
Sponsored by Nike.
But
And
I would-
Shia LaBeouf.
That is a very good question. That's also a very difficult question to ask. I think when you
and this
that-
person's a very experienced Christ believer that's asking this
Ooh,
question.
so it's almost like a test.
okay,
Not even like a test, but like even like they still struggle with this.
Oh,
you
I
know?
was gonna say, then you tell us.
Oh, right.
I think
Wow.
the valley is a very broad. When you mention like
Just in your hard times. I
yeah,
think.
like
Yeah.
and I know you could be like the mountains and the peaks, so we don't know exactly what this person's going through, but
Mhm.
in my personal experience and from what we've seen in examples of the Bible, like even like I mentioned before, Job was in the valley for quite a while. I think it's just remembering and knowing that Jesus is in control and he has a plan for us and he has the best in mind for us, and God is a fair and just God. We don't always see that in our eyes as humans, but he has reasons for things that he does, and like we were reading in Sermon on the Mount, God will bless us through these things when we, when we're meek, when we're poor in spirit, when we're thirsty and hunger for righteousness. I kind of lost my
That's
train
good
of
answer.
thought.
Good.
But
Brandon,
if
Emilio,
someone wants
you
to
guys have
piggyback
a-
off
Sure.
that, I don't
Yeah.
know. Yeah.
Yeah. I think if you're looking for like a practical answer or like what I would physically do in a valley, I I pray, and that's an easy answer, but just give me a sec. Let me cook.
Right on.
In the
Prayer is the only way that we directly like communicate with God almost. We don't hear a response back, but it's a conversation. And when you devote time to opening up the word and seeking God's wisdom, and you ask for help and you pray on it, God will grant you that, like we talked about earlier, and you'll find verses. You will absolutely find verses when you seek that wisdom or strength to get through those difficult times. You will find it in the Bible, absolutely. But another one is being around other Christ followers or people
just
that will
thinking
build
that.
you up. Yeah, because when you turn, and I'm not trying to say that like people of the faith are better people to turn to than those who aren't. But if you do turn to somebody that maybe lives in the world and of the world, they may not give you the most productive solutions. And that's not to say that that's a given or an absolute. Because, yeah.
Oh, yeah. Gotcha.
But when you don't have God in your life and you don't have that higher power, I guess, to turn to, you do have to start turning to things in the world. And some of those things will be finite. They don't necessarily have to be destructive. There are things that you can turn to that are destructive, but they will be finite and they will not fully fulfill you for the long term. It'll only be in the short term. And so when you surround yourself with people of the faith, or you just ask someone simply to pray for you, or just keep checking on you or something, or whatever that may look like, it's very helpful in those hard times, because now you have someone that isn't just going to pat you on the back and be like, oh yeah, like you got it, like good for you. Like people, they should be able to help you in those moments, and they can give you references in the Bible. Like Noah's our Bible verse guy. Like there have been so many
he's
times.
Bible man.
Yeah, he is Bible man. He is. He puts on the suit.
Let's put his face on Bible, man.
Yeah.
I'll get Max to do that.
Like there have been times when Noah he says a verse, like that's what led to this podcast today, was when he talked about the Sermon on the Mount. And so when people around you who are Christ followers can give you somewhere to turn to, that's so helpful, because then that kind of helps you switch your mindset back into a godly one, and then they hold you accountable.
Well said.
Even I'll add this really quick. Even just knowing that when you're in the valley and you're going through a hard time, and there's times when someone's not going to understand what you're going through, and there's times where I don't understand what someone else is going through. But when you can have someone just saying, I'm sorry you're going through this. I'm going to pray for you, and when you know like they're actually going to pray for you, it's a very comforting feeling. Just knowing that you have people, family, community that genuinely care and love you. That even just if it's just prayer that they can do, that's prayer is powerful and it's very comforting. Just knowing that, even if they physically can't be there with you or they don't know exactly what you're going through, they can still be there to pray for you and they can still be there for you.
Yeah. Yeah, and in times when people have prayed over me, I really do feel that love, both from them, but also from God, because God speaks to us through each other. And so in those moments when I've like asked somebody to pray over me or someone just has prayed over me, it does make me feel like I'm not alone and that there are people that care about me, and it's a good feeling. It's a good feeling. And it helps with those dark times.
I have a couple thoughts on this. So the question was, how do I trust God while in the valley?
Yeah.
Well, I think my first thought on this is that, like, I could tell you how to throw a punch. I could like really describe it to you. Okay, so you have to engage the front delt and the tricep at the same time.
Oh, there we go.
And then you have to release those muscles,
Twist
and then
the
you have to
hips.
catch the punch with your bicep and rear delts, or like I could like
Sure.
describe it to you, and then I could show you how to throw a punch, and then I guarantee you, if you've never thrown a punch before, even after I describe it to you and you see it, you're not going to be very good at it like the first time you throw a punch.
Mm-hmm.
And this goes for anything, like any skill. I just happen to be the one that I think of first, or benching or squatting, in gym speak. It could be anything. So there's like a difference between me telling you how to do it versus you actually experiencing and learning how to do it. So I've just felt this a lot with like anything having to do with my relationship with God and faith and doubt and belief, is that there's only so much people can tell you. Like I've gone through the periods of great doubt, and there was like very little that my parents could tell me or my pastor that would get me out of that. It was basically just between me and God at that point. And so I think you guys said some great things. You guys were describing how to throw the punch, but to this person, they have to like go through that valley in order to learn how to trust in God. And then another thought, this is almost like just the beginning of a thought, and I don't really know where to go with it exactly, but we don't really have to learn how to trust our parents when we're kids.
You're saying we just do?
Yeah, I feel like we mistrust them as time goes on, as they like fail us. As babies, we just like naturally trust our parents, or as kids, we just naturally trust our parents, and then as time goes on, we like mistrust them. I wonder if that has anything to do with our like trust with God.
Yeah, I think. Also, I like that example you gave. I think that I wasn't necessarily like, thinking about that. It's so easy to say, like, do this or don't do that. Like, this is gonna work because it's worked for me. But it's also like it could, sure, but like anything, like you said, we have to experience, we have to practice in order to get better at it. And one thing I was thinking about too is like being in that valley is a huge learning experience. I think, at least for me, I don't know how it is for you guys, but I learn a lot when I'm down in that valley and I'm struggling and I'm going through whatever it is. But after I come out of it, especially when I look back, I'm like, wow, God was teaching me patience, or God was teaching me to trust him, or he was really challenging me to love this person. And it could look different, but the way I kind of look at it is sometimes when we're on that mountaintop, when we're on that pedestal, life is going good, but maybe sometimes we're feeling like we're too high up and we're looking down at God. Like, look what I accomplished. Look what I'm doing. I got myself here. And maybe sometimes, I'm not saying God purposely kicks that stool, but like maybe that stool just kind of gets kicked underneath us and we fall down and we become more eye level with Christ. And maybe he's like, you're up top here, but I needed you to see something while you're on this level down here. And maybe those are the things that God's like, I'm going to teach you something. And I want you to learn this. So that's just something I thought of and maybe a perspective. So when you're going through the valley, it sucks, but I encourage you to keep your eyes open. I think God might be challenging you with something or giving you an opportunity to learn something.
Yeah. And Luke, you talk about this a lot of praying to be given situations where you can test certain things that God wants. So we were just talking earlier in the kitchen, and like right now I'm in like a valley just with like studying or whatever, and you said like how did you say it? You were like, you're really being tested on patience right now, right? And I was like, oh yeah, for sure. That might not be exactly how you phrased it.
It was pretty much how
it was
I
pretty
said,
much that. Like, in order to gain patience, in order to further yourself, like you have to go through a situation, kind of like what you're saying, like where you need to be tested to have patience. Because think about in life, like if everything was on easy mode and you never had to be tested, first of all, there wouldn't be a whole lot of lessons that you would learn, because you wouldn't fall to then learn what not to do or what to do. But also, and I just lost my train of thought, also, yeah, massive things would happen.
There you go.
But yeah. So pray for certain situations. Like if patience is something, like pray that God gives you a situation where maybe you can test your patience and then be receptive to that. And then when that situation comes, like don't then ignore it. Yeah. So last episode when you were talking about, the guy that you saw at the Speedway.
The convenience stores of Speedway.
Yep.
You saw him the first time and, you were like, okay, you kind of like moved on, but then you prayed to God for that situation to come back around, and it did. And so then you were receptive to it and you said, okay, I asked you last time to present me with this situation again. Now you have, I'm going to take action. And so, yeah, we just have to be prepared for that. And then like once the situation comes around, don't push it off.
Yeah. And we'll kind of wrap her up in a second too, but also I was thinking, be careful too with, when we ask for things, like be conscious and know what you're asking for. If you are asking for opportunity to be patient, if you want to learn how to love better, if you want to learn how to be more generous, when you ask for those things and God presents you those opportunities, like don't abuse that and don't ignore it. I think it's very important that if we're asking God and he grants us what we're asking for, like we should do our best then to do it. I think that's very important. Like God is answering our prayer, and I think then it's on us to, we ask for this, Lord, thank you for providing the opportunity. I'm going to now take the steps necessary to do this. And it does suck, like you're saying, Milo, whether it's a bench or squat, you're learning how to punch. You're not going to be good at it the first time, and a lot of those things, it hurts, it sucks, but it's very rewarding when you learn how to do it. Not just do it, but with the proper form, the proper way, the safe way. You're going to get the best results from it.
Yes, Lord.
Yeah, that was some...
That's our aunt. Whenever we're praying, she'll just be like, yes, Lord. And it'll be like dead silent. She's
even in church, she was like that.
Yeah, or like when during Gigi and Matthew's wedding, like you were talking or you were saying, you were reading like a Bible verse or something, and you walked away from the stand, and she's like, praise God.
Praise
Something
God.
like that.
That's huge.
Just really loud, but...
Yeah, thank you for leading that, Brandon. That's some good stuff. We will, like we said, we'll plan on doing like a part 2 or 3 maybe down the road. We don't know what episode that'll be, but we do know coming up for the next main episode, we are going to be having our next guest on. So we're not going to tell you who. You're going to have to tune in and watch to see who that is, but we're very excited for it. We have a couple more guests lined up too for the next couple of months. We're super excited for that. So continue to watch. We appreciate all the support. Remember, for next time, ask some questions. thank you for whoever asked that question. I think that was a really good question that we got into, which I'm really happy about. But yeah, we will just remember the Beatitudes. You know, God will bless us in many different ways, and don't be afraid to stand up for your faith and follow after Christ in everything that you do. So, off of that, as always, remember to like, comment, and subscribe and share. This is the Campfire Council Podcast.